You arrive in Istanbul at that rare hour when the city seems to belong equally to memory and to morning. The light is still soft. The air is touched by salt. Somewhere overhead, gulls are already circling, their voices sharp against the quiet. And before you begin to notice the buildings, before your eyes settle on the domes and towers and distant rooftops, you feel something older than architecture. You feel the pull of geography. You stand where continents nearly touch. Europe is at your back. Asia waits across the water. Between them, the Bosporus moves with its patient, glittering strength, as if it has all the time in the world. And perhaps it does. It has watched Greek sailors, Roman emperors, Byzantine priests, Venetian merchants, Ottoman sultans, and modern commuters all come and go. It has watched men build, burn, conquer, pray, trade, dream, and vanish. The water remains. As you look out, the city begins to reveal itself in layers, not all at once, never all at once. Istanbul is not a place that gives itself away quickly. It asks you to walk. It asks you to notice. It asks you to understand that this city has had more than one name because it has lived more than one life. Once, it was Byzantium, a Greek colony at the edge of worlds. Then it became Constantinople, the glittering capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, a city crowned by ceremony, theology, and imperial ambition. Later, it became the great Ottoman capital, transformed yet again, its skyline remade with minarets, courtyards, and mosques that answered the grandeur of the older world without erasing it. And now, as Istanbul, it is alive with traffic, ferries, markets, voices, and the ordinary rhythms of millions of lives. Yet none of its earlier selves have entirely disappeared. That is what makes this city different. You do not simply visit it. You enter into conversation with it. Each stone seems to remember something. Each hill seems to rise out of another century. Each dome catches the light as if it was still trying to prove that beauty can outlast power. So you begin here, with the sea breeze on your face and the city opening before you like a vast and complicated manuscript. Ahead of you are emperors and sultans, riots and prayers, walls and markets, silence and ceremony. Ahead of you is a city that has stood at the crossroads of East and West for longer than most nations have existed. And as the morning brightens, you take your first steps forward into one of the great meeting places of history. Before the city became a prize, it was a passage. You walk toward the water and realize that everything begins here, with the narrow strait that made this place impossible to ignore. The Bosporus is not wide, yet it divides two continents and binds them at the same time. It carries light on its surface, but beneath that beauty lies power. You follow the curve of the shore and imagine ships appearing out of morning haze, grain vessels from the Black Sea, merchant convoys from the Mediterranean, envoys bearing silk, wine, silver, spices, icons, and rumor. Whoever controlled these waters could tax trade, feed armies, influence kingdoms, and watch the movement of worlds. To your left, the Golden Horn opens like a sheltered hand, calm and deep. It gave ancient mariners a harbor so secure that wealth naturally gathered around it. Warehouses, docks, shipyards, markets, customs houses, and crowded quays turned geography into destiny. Long before visitors praised the city's splendor, they understood its position. That is why Constantine chose this place for a new imperial capital. He did not build only for beauty. He built for reach. From here, an emperor could look north to the Black Sea, south toward the Mediterranean, east toward Asia, west toward Europe, and know that roads and sea lanes alike converged on this shore. Soldiers could be moved, taxes collected, messages carried, fleets launched. Pilgrims arrived seeking holiness, traders arrived seeking profit, conquerors arrived seeking permanence. The water welcomed all of them, then carried many away. As you stand listening to ferries churn across the strait, you understand something essential. The monuments came later. The arguments of religion and empire came later. First there was the passage, the harbor, the crossing. First there was the water, and it still tells the city's first story. You step into Sultan Ahmed Square, and at first it seems calm, almost deceptively so. People pass through with cameras, conversations, and unhurried footsteps. Trees soften the edges. The light falls gently on stone. But if you stand still for a moment, the quiet begins to crack, and another sound rises beneath it. You can almost hear the roar. This was once the Hippodrome, the great public arena of Constantinople, where the empire gathered to watch speed, skill, rivalry, and power performed before thousands of eyes. Here the chariots raced. Here the factions shouted. Here the emperor appeared before the people, not hidden behind palace walls, but displayed magnificence and measured by the mood of the crowd. You walk past the ancient monuments that still survive, the Egyptian obelisk lifting its old authority into the sky, the serpent column carrying memories older than Constantinople itself, the worn stone of the walled obelisk, standing like a witness that has seen too much. They are fragments now, but they still mark the spine of a place that once thundered with energy, and the crowd was never only a crowd. The blues and the greens were not merely fans of sport. They were loyalties, identities, grievances waiting for flame. In this very place, celebration could become fury. In the Nika riots of 532, the city erupted and much of Constantinople was consumed by fire and violence. So as you stand here now in the open air and modern light, you realize that this peaceful square was once the beating, dangerous heart of an empire. You leave the square and turn toward the building that seems less constructed than summoned. Hagia Sophia does not simply rise before you. It gathers itself out of history and light. From outside, it feels like an argument made visible, a declaration that faith, empire, and human ambition can be fused into one form. Its dome hovers above the city with a confidence that has endured fire, conquest, earthquake, prayer, and time. You slow your pace as you approach, because this monument does not yield itself in a single glance. Buttresses press against ancient walls. Minarets lift at the corners. Brick, marble, scars, repairs, and centuries all stand together. The building does not hide what it has been. It carries every age openly, as if refusing the comfort of belonging to one world. Then you enter, and the change is immediate. Outside, the city surrounds you with noise. Inside, space seems to deepen. You look up, and language feels inadequate. The dome does not crush you with weight. It floats. Light spills from the ring of windows beneath it, so that the ceiling appears suspended between earth and heaven. The air is cooled. The stone under your feet feels worn by generations. Every sound becomes an echo, then a memory. This was the church rebuilt by Emperor Justinian after the Nika riots, raised in the 6th century as the crown of Christian Constantinople. Tradition says that when he saw it completed, he cried, "Solomon, I have outdone thee." Whether or not he said those exact words, The boast fits the building. Hagia Sophia was meant to overwhelm, to persuade, to make imperial power and divine order seem inseparable. And yet, what makes it unforgettable is not only its scale, but its layered soul. Somewhere above you, the gold mosaics of Christ, the Virgin, saints, and emperors still survive, though damaged, hidden, revealed, and restored across time. Around you hang vast roundels inscribed with Arabic calligraphy, brought in when the Ottomans transformed the church into an imperial mosque after 1453. One tradition did not wholly erase the other. Instead, both remain suspended in a strange and moving conversation. That is the true wonder of this place. Hagia Sophia has been cathedral, mosque, museum, and mosque again. Rulers changed, empires fell, laws shifted, arguments raged, yet the building endured, larger than any single century that tried to define it. It has received coronations, sermons, prostrations, tourist whispers, imperial decrees, and private astonishment. As you stand beneath the dome, you sense what generations before you sensed, that architecture can do more than shelter belief. It can shape belief. It can humble the proud, steady the frightened, and leave even the skeptical with the uneasy feeling that they have entered a place where human beings once tried with all their skill to build eternity. When you finally turn to leave, you do so reluctantly. The city is still waiting outside, but some part of you remains under that dome, looking upward, caught between brilliance and silence. You move on from the great open light of Hagia Sophia towards something more elusive, more fragile, and in some ways more haunting. The great palace of Constantinople is mostly gone now, scattered across time, buried beneath later centuries, broken into fragments that must be imagined before they can be understood. Yet as you walk this ground, imagination comes easily. You can picture corridors alive with messengers, courtyards flashing with silk, guarded doors opening onto chambers where policy, ceremony, intrigue, and fear all shared the same air. An empire did not live only in churches and triumphs. It lived in schedules, kitchens, storage rooms, servants' quarters, audience halls, and guarded thresholds. Power needed splendor, but it also needed routine. It needed water. So you descend into the Basilica cistern, and the city seems to lower its voice. The air cools, the light softens. Columns rise from the water in long shadowed ranks, as if an underground forest had been taught to stand in perfect order. Reflections tremble beneath your feet. Drops fall somewhere in the darkness. The famous Medusa heads wait at the base of two columns, mysterious, displaced, still refusing to explain themselves. Above you, the city moves on with traffic, prayer, trade, and sunlight. Down here, you feel the hidden labor that kept Constantinople alive. Reservoirs, channels, engineering, maintenance, human effort. These were the silent partners of glory. The palace may have dazzled ambassadors, but this subterranean chamber kept fountains running, kitchens working, and households breathing. In this cool half-darkness, you understand that every radiant civilization rests on unseen foundations, and that what survives above ground is only part of the story. You leave the ceremonial heart of the city and make your way towards the land walls where Constantinople once faced the world with its sternest expression. Here there is less ornament, less softness, less invitation. Stone takes over, distance opens. Wind moves across broken grass, and weathered towers, and the city feels suddenly older, harder, more exposed. These are the walls of Theodosius, among the most formidable defenses ever built in the ancient and medieval world. They were not a single barrier, but a system. Moat, outer wall, inner wall. Towers placed with relentless logic. They were designed not merely to resist an enemy, but to exhaust him, confuse him, humble him, and, if necessary, bury his confidence beneath repeated failure. As you walk beside them, you begin to understand why generations of attackers found this city so maddeningly difficult to take. Persians and Avars, Arabs, Rus, Bulgars, and many others came against Constantinople with ambition, faith, hunger, and steel. Again and again, these stones answered them with patience. Siege engines splintered, assaults faltered, hopes thinned. For centuries, the walls taught enemies that desire was not enough. And yet, what moves you most is not only their strength, but their vulnerability. Every wall is an admission that something precious lies behind it. Every tower declares fear as well as power. The city defended itself because it knew its own value. These ramparts guarded churches, palaces, markets, libraries, homes, and fragile belief that civilization could be preserved by human will. You stand before them now and feel both confidence and warning in the same stone. For hundreds of years, these walls seemed almost eternal. But history is patient, and even the strongest defenses cannot keep every future outside forever. Soon you will reach 1453, when cannon fire and relentless will finally broke what had seemed unbreakable. But here, in this wind, the walls still keep their old authority, and the empire's last defiance still lingers. You come at last to the year that still echoes through every stone, 1453. By now, Constantinople had endured sieges, recoveries, losses, and long decline, but it still stood, proud even in weakness, protected by memory as much as by masonry. Then Sultan Mehmed II arrived before its walls, young, determined, and unwilling to accept that this city should belong to anyone else. You can feel the tension gathering, as if the air itself remembers it. Cannon are dragged into place. Camps spread across, the land approaches. Ships move in the surrounding waters. Inside the city, defenders pray, repair, watch, and wait. The numbers are unequal. The resources are unequal, yet the meaning of the struggle makes every hour heavier. This is not simply a battle for territory. It is a contest over inheritance, legitimacy, and the right to claim one of the greatest capitals on earth. When the final assault comes, it is brutal, concentrated, and decisive. The walls that had turned back so many enemies are breached at last. Men rush through smoke, dust, shouting in terror. The Byzantine Empire, which had survived in some form for more than 1,000 years, reaches its end in confusion and blood. An age closes, but the story does not end with collapse. That is what makes this city so remarkable. Mehmed saw in it a future capital. He entered not only as conqueror, but as founder. He ordered rebuilding. He encouraged resettlement. He brought administrators, craftsmen, merchants, scholars, and families from across the empire to fill the emptied streets. Churches were preserved, converted, or repurposed. Markets revived. Workshops reopened. Mosques, schools, baths, and courts began to reshape the urban fabric. The city did not vanish beneath Ottoman rule. It was reimagined beneath Ottoman rule. The truth matters as you walk here now. For the Byzantines, 1453 was devastation, grief, and the extinguishing of an imperial world. For the Ottomans it was triumph, legitimacy, and the beginning of a new imperial center. Both realities remain in the stones. The fall was a wound, but it was also a turning. Constantinople became Ottoman Constantinople, and in time, Istanbul. The names changed. The skyline changed. The prayers changed. The city, stubborn and magnificent, refused to die. It crossed the threshold of conquest and emerged not as a ruin alone, but as a capital reborn. And that rebirth would define the centuries to come. You pass through the gates of Topkapi Palace and enter a world designed not to overwhelm you all at once, but to unfold in measured stages. Unlike the massive single-block palaces of many European courts, this one reveals power through distance, sequence, and restraint. One courtyard leads to another. One gate permits access, while another denies it. The palace teaches you that authority is something approached carefully, never casually. As you move inward, the noise of the city begins to fall away. Cypress trees cast narrow shadows. Fountains soften the air. Marble paths guide you past kitchens, chambers, pavilions, and audience spaces where the Ottoman state translated ambition into ritual. Here, officials waited, petitions were reviewed, judgments were shaped, and the empire's daily machinery was kept in motion with deliberate discipline. Yet Topkapi is not only administrative, it is intimate in ways that surprise you. It is a place of thresholds, privacy, and controlled visibility, where the Sultan could be at once distant and present, hidden and absolute. In the Imperial Council chamber, ministers debated matters stretching across 3 continents. In the treasury, jewels and ceremonial objects proclaimed wealth gathered from an immense realm. In the sacred relics collection, power drew close to devotion. Then you reach the terraces, and the palace opens outward again. The Bosporus gleams below. The Golden Horn curves through the city. Beyond the water, hills and neighborhoods spread in every direction. From here, the Ottoman vision becomes clear. This was not simply a residence. It was a carefully ordered theater of empire, where governance, ceremony, faith, and seclusion reinforced one another at every turn. As you stand in its measured quiet, you sense that Ottoman power often spoke most clearly not through noise, but through arrangement, patience, and the disciplined control of space itself. Here, you leave the palace and return to the open square, where another great monument rises in poised answer to the city's older glory. The Blue Mosque, formerly the Sultan Ahmed Mosque, does not imitate Hagia Sophia so much as speak back to it. Across the square, the 2 vast structures face one another like rival chapters in the same magnificent book. Yet you approach through the courtyard and feel the building gather around you in widening rhythm. Domes cascade downwards from the great central crown. 6 minarets spear the sky. Stone seems to flow rather than merely stand. The whole composition carries a confidence at once devotional and imperial. Inside, the atmosphere changes again. Light filters through windows and settles across the interior with a softness that tempers the scale. Blue Iznik tiles pattern the walls in floral designs that seem almost to breathe. The space invites reverence, but it also invites wonder. Here, beauty becomes a form of argument. Faith is not only declared, it is arranged, colored, illuminated, and made tangible. And that is what strikes you most as you stand between this mosque and Hagia Sophia. They do not cancel each other. They converse. One speaks in the voice of Byzantium, the other in the voice of the Ottoman world. Together they shape one of the great skylines of history, proving that architecture can preserve rivalry, continuity, memory, and aspiration all at once. And as evening light touches the domes, you feel centuries balancing above the square. You leave the monumental square and enter a different kind of grandeur, one measured not in domes or imperial decrees, but in voices, aromas, textures, and exchange. In the Grand Bazaar, history closes in around you through vaulted lanes and shaded passages where commerce has outlived dynasties. Lamps glitter overhead, copper catches the light, carpets spill color, shopkeepers talk in low persuasion or cheerful insistence, and every few steps another scent rises to meet you. Then the Spice Bazaar deepens the spell. Cinnamon, saffron, sumac, rose, tea, dried fruit, and coffee gather in the air until memory itself seems perfumed. You realize that this city was never sustained by ceremony alone. It survived because people bought, sold, negotiated, carried, cooked, repaired, stitched, polished, measured, and returned the next morning to do it all again. That continuity matters. Empires announce themselves in proclamations, monuments, and victories, but cities endure through habit. Here, beneath painted ceilings and among narrow aisles, you glimpse the daily genius of Istanbul. Trade is not an interruption to history. It is history at ground level. Byzantine merchants once bargained for silk and grain. Ottoman traders expanded those networks across continents. Modern vendors still arrange their goods with the same hope that someone will pause, admire, and choose. As you move through the crowd, the city feels less like a museum and more like a living pulse. Cups clink, prices are weighed, hands gesture, doors open and close, and you understand that the ordinary life of Istanbul has always been one of its greatest wonders. It is here, amid bargaining and breath, that city proves survival can sound like voices and smell like coffee. You step onto the Galata Bridge and feel the city watching around you. Below, fishermen lean over the rail with quiet patience, their lines fallen into water that has carried merchants, pilgrims, warships, and ferries for centuries. Around you, footsteps cross in both directions, and the bridge becomes what Istanbul has always been, a place of passage. From here, the view gathers the city into one long breath. Behind you rise the domes and minarets of the old imperial peninsula. Ahead, Galata climbs upward, crowned by its medieval tower. Built by the Genoese, the tower still watches over the district like an old foreign witness, reminding you that this city was shaped not by one people alone, but by many. Greeks, Armenians, Jews, Turks, Levantines, and others all left marks here in commerce, language, worship, food, and memory. That is the gift of this crossing. It teaches you to see Istanbul not only as a city of conquests, but as a city of encounters. Ferries cut across the water. Horns sound in the distance. The tide moves beneath the bridge, as it always has. And as you pause midway between shores, you understand that this city's deepest identity may be neither east nor west, but the restless, fertile space between them. Here, every crossing feels physical, historical, and personal, as though the water is remembering. You make your way back toward the water as the day begins to soften, and the city gathers itself once more into silhouette, reflection, and memory. Domes darken against the evening sky. Minarets catch the last of the light. Ferries move across the Bosporus with quiet purpose, stitching shore to shore as they have in one form or another for centuries. Nothing is still, and yet everything seems to hold. By now you understand that Istanbul cannot be reduced to a single empire, a single faith, a single triumph, or a single loss. It has been Greek, Roman, Byzantine, Ottoman, and modern, but never neatly, never completely, never without the living presence of what came before. That is why the city feels so powerful. It does not abandon its past. It carries it. You have walked through public squares and sacred spaces, along walls that once guarded a civilization, through markets where daily life outlasted dynasties, and over waters that made this place a prize to the world. At every step, the city has revealed the same truth in different forms. Geography made it possible, empire made it famous, faith made it luminous, and ordinary life made it endure. And perhaps that is the final lesson Istanbul offers you. Cities, like people, are never only one thing. They are accumulations. They are arguments with time. They are wounds that heal without disappearing. They are memories that learn how to breathe in the present. So when you leave, you do not feel that you have reached the end of a story. You feel that you have listened to a voice still speaking, a voice carried in gull cries, in prayer, in traffic, in footsteps, in the wash of water against stone. The domes still gleam, the ferries still move, the city continues, and now, in some quiet way, it continues within you. Long after sunset, its layered history remains beside you like music, fading, yet never gone.